Good afternoon. I'm Bronwen from Macquarie University, and I'd like to talk to you about stewardship of natural resources and Raui on the Cook Islands. Let me just share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint. Right, so I'm from the Department of History and Archaeology at Macquarie University. Some of you will know me better as someone who's been working on dreams and divination and prophecy from the rise of Christianity to early Islam. For the last 6 or so years, I have been working on that. And it got me thinking about apocalypticism, about end of days rhetoric, about real threats of doom to our environment, for example, climate change and the overexploitation of resources. So I began to think about the ways that early Christians managed scarcity of resources, how they organized the distribution of wealth within their communities, which is something I worked with Wendy Mayer and Pauline Allen on in the Poverty and Welfare in Late Antiquity project several years ago. So this is, to me, a natural extension of that work, although it may seem like a radical departure. So it came about through collaboration with my colleagues in the Creative Documentary Research Centre at Macquarie University, which is about how creative arts can and does document the world that we live in, but also the world of the past. So as a historian, I bring my experience with ancient manuscripts, with ancient stories, with myths and ways of producing ethical communities in early Christianity to this work. So I started to work with my colleague, Professor Tom Murray, who's a filmmaker, on stewardship of resources and Raui on the Cook Islands. So eventually we would like to extend this project to other parts of Polynesia, but the first pilot was on Mangaia, which is an island in the Cook Islands. It's the oldest Pacific island, geologically speaking, and it today has a population of 464 people, but in past centuries it's probably had up to 3,000 people. Our project activates Indigenous knowledge systems and the long-term cultural protocols around resource sharing, which is called Raui in the Cook Islands, Raui in Tahiti. And it's a system of protection that's imposed by the local council, and it can be prosecuted by fines, but generally speaking, it's prosecuted by general opinion. So it works best in a small community like these islands where everybody knows each other and knows if you're breaking the rules and sneaking out at night to catch certain fish, or using certain kinds of equipment like drag nets that you're not allowed to use at certain times of the year. So it's about protecting the natural resources to make the food last until the next season or until the boat comes with a shipment of food. It's really about survival for the people of the islands across Polynesia. So we were asking how these protocols will need to be adapted in the face of resource insecurity, both on sea and on land, as a result of climate change, and how these long-term and successful protocols can inform global strategies for sustainable resource use. Are there any lessons for the rest of the world, which seems to be in a chronic state of overexploitation of everything from energy resources to food to clean water, that we can take on and learn something to the benefit of our own future generations? We adopted a conceptual research methodology based on 3 kinds of knowledge coming together to enrich and enhance understanding. And these are the sciences, especially marine science, marine biology, Indigenous knowledge, especially of Polynesia, and creative arts knowledge and practice, which, as I said, for me includes creative ways of presenting knowledge of the ancient world. And I was engaged with a team of collaborators on a similar project called the Greek Villa Virtual Reality Project, where we wanted to use an interactive virtual reality experience that was a bit like a game to see if it could improve students' understanding of the situation of slaves within households in ancient Greece. We created this avatar, Layla. She's 15 years old. She's just come to a Greek household from Syria as a slave, and she has to fit in to the existing hierarchy of the household from other slaves who are kind of supervising her right up to the master of the household. So this seemed to have fairly positive impact on the students for understanding what it's like to be a young female slave from a foreign country in a context like that. And we published our findings in the Journal of Technology and Behaviour. So having embarked on this kind of creative arts journey, I teamed up with Tom Murray, who is an excellent filmmaker in the Department of McCall at Macquarie, which is Media Communications, Creative Arts, Language and Literature. And together we decided to do a pilot, or to apply for money from the Fond Pacific first, to do a pilot on the Cook Islands. And the destination of Mangaia was chosen for us by Pea Patai, who is a waka captain, so a sea canoe captain. He's a poil master, which means he's been initiated into this fairly small group of people with sea navigation skills that are based on navigating by the stars at night, and knowledge of the tides, knowledge of birds, all those kinds of traditional knowledge that can help guide people from across the open sea on a waka, which is essentially a catamaran raft, so a raft with 2 hulls underneath, which traditionally would have been made out of a tree trunk split down the middle. So we decided to go to Mangaia, which is in the southeast corner of the Cook Islands. It's 24 hours sail from Rarotonga, the main island. And you'll see it there in the bottom right corner of that map of the Cook Islands. And above is a topographical model of the island. You'll see that it's surrounded by coral shelf. That's the pale blue section. And some of that has been walled off into a lagoon. Not quite a deep enough boat harbour for the waka to come into, but a place that can be used to harbour small boats and small canoes like the one smaller than the one we were in that are used for fishing. So that is Mangaia. Our crew and the program. The crew consisted of Pea, who is a poil master, as I mentioned, and a Cook Islander, Clyde and Vixen, who are navigators from Satawal, Jerry, who's also a navigator, and a descendant of Mao, Satawal's poil master, who's died now, but was involved in one of the very first waka journeys from from Hawaii to Tahiti. And Anthony Vavia, who's a Cook Islander, a marine biologist. And finally, Steve was the last member of the crew, another Cook Islander. And on the non-Cook Islander side, we had Tom Murray, myself, Alex Ryan from Macquarie, a filmmaker, Bentley Dean, another filmmaker from Australia, Eliane Kohler, who represented Oceanus, the Foundation for the Sea, who lent us the boat, and Dominique Tehei, who's has knowledge of Raui in Tahiti and lives in Tahiti on the water there. So our program was to travel to Mangaia on the Wakamotu, which is obviously a sustainable way of traveling. All you need is the wind. And to record interviews with local Mangaians with knowledge of Raui and of marine management, other interviews with tropical marine scientists, with officers from the fisheries, and with Tahitian users of Raui like Dominique Tehei. And we aim to put together a museum exhibition for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which is started last year, with 360-degree films, with a virtual reality installation, and with live streaming to international venues. So it's been an exciting project, as you can imagine. Tom had the idea of using a 360-degree camera, which you can see there on the top left. And we took that on the waka, which you can see there on the top right. And when you're watching a 360-degree film with goggles, you can navigate. You can feel like you're actually on the boat with a 360-degree horizon of water around you. So it's a very awe-inspiring experience. And that amazing picture at the bottom there is one that Tom used, manipulating the 360-degree camera to make the waka look like it's floating on a world of water there in the sky. So what does Raui protect? Fish of all kinds, and then species which are threatened or scarce or need protection during certain seasons so that they can be harvested when they're plentiful. So, for instance, Mangaia kingfishers, like these two beautiful specimens here, are endemic to Mangaia. They were on the point of dying out, and they have recovered substantially because of Raui, which means that people can't take the eggs and also can't take the birds for food. And coconut crabs are another species that's been made to last this way. So when they're ready to eat, they're 50 or 60 or 70 years old. So they need to be protected when they're still small. They're called unga or kaweu. And when they're cooked, they're this beautiful blue. When they're found, they're blue, and when they're cooked, they come out in a browny pink color, and they're massive. They're about this big, so they can feed a lot of people. They're called coconut crabs because they climb up the coconut trees and use coconuts on the tree to crack coconuts down below by nibbling them off, so they drop down, and then they can eat the coconut flesh of the coconut, which in turn makes them taste coconutty. So they are really incredible creatures, and we were privileged to be taken out at night on the Makatea, which is the fossilized coral shelf that is kind of halfway up the island, and to be able to take a couple of these home. So you just pick them up basically and tie them up so they can't grab you to eat. So Raui is a flexible system. It allows for seasonal protection of some species. It's never a blanket rule, and it depends on local knowledge of which things need to be protected and when, and local communities to work. So as I mentioned before, you need to know who your neighbours are, who the local people are. So if somebody is fishing or catching birds or collecting crabs outside the Raui time, then they can be picked up on it. It allows a small island population to regulate its resources according to need. And it was used right across Polynesia from Aotearoa to Tahiti, but now knowledge of it is rather restricted. Mangaia and Cook Islands generally is one of the places where the knowledge is still strong. It predates the arrival of Christianity in the Cook Islands and on Mangaia in particular in 1824 with the London Missionary Society, but it's only recently been reintroduced in the last 5 or 10 years. It crosses all denominations of Christianity, so Cook Islands has a very high level of Christian identification, and it has about 6 major denominations. The biggest one would be the Cook Islands Christian Church, which is local to it. So together with the priests and the people on the local councils and the fisheries, they coordinate this program of Raui using signs telling people when they can't collect certain food sources at certain times. And just to show you how this works, caring for the environment with an N, I thought I'd show you this short video, just 30 seconds, of the Mangaia, which is the Cook Island or the Mangaian kingfisher, as pictured here. And this video comes from Cook Islands Conservation, and it shows how traditional song can be used with video to appeal to both kids and adults to keep this intergenerational knowledge alive. So the Mangaia was the Cook Island Bird of the Year in 2020, and this is the traditional song about that bird. Here we go. So I'd just like to thank you for your attention. Thanks for sharing this time with me, thinking about stewardship of natural resources in the Cook Islands and what that might mean for us in the future and what lessons we can take away from it. And if you'd like to know more about the project, please do contact me at any time. Okay, thank you.